He's a candidate for U.S. Senate for Connecticut. His name is Brian K. Hill. Let's give him a hand.
Good evening, folks. My name is Brian K. Hill, and the K is my middle initial. It's not my last name. There's been some confusion about that. And I am a Republican candidate for the United States Senate for 2012. This is a seat being vacated by Senator Joseph Lieberman. Let me give you a little bit of background about me and then tell you why I'm running. I was born and raised in Windsor, Connecticut, product of our Windsor public school system. I went to Southern Connecticut State University in New Haven, Connecticut. I graduated from Southern and went on to law school at Howard University in Washington, D.C. And after law school, I joined the military, and I became a military JAG attorney, Judge Advocate General Corps attorney for the Army and the Navy. I've been deployed around the world. I've lived overseas. I've lived in 8 or 9 different states. I've practiced a variety of fields of law while in the military. I was a prosecuting attorney for the first 3 years. I've been an international law attorney. I've been a federal contract law attorney. I've been a federal fiscal law attorney. I've been an administrative law attorney. I've been an installation or base attorney. I've done legal assistance attorney. So I've got a pretty diverse legal background. Currently, I own my own law firm in downtown Washington, in downtown Hartford, where it's a general law practice where we help families and businesses in the state of Connecticut navigate this bureaucracy that we have here in this state. I just got off of active duty last year, 2010, just last year after 12 years completely. So that's my educational background and some of my personal background. Now let me tell you why I'm running for the United States Senate. I'm running for the Senate because this country is in serious, serious trouble. And I don't know if people realize how serious the situation is in this country. I saw it firsthand being in the military for 12 years, and that's why I got off active duty to do what I'm doing now, because I'm concerned about the direction of this country. We have an unprecedented attack on businesses, both large and small. We have out-of-control spending. We have bureaucrats in Washington that don't respect our rights. We've got elected officials that don't respect the Constitution. We have kids in schools that look like prisons, and prisons full of kids who should be in school. If you look in any major city in the United States, you see the effects that democratic policies have on our cities, these dependency-promoting policies affecting our cities, where you see 30+% unemployment, gangs, violence, drugs, kids with no hope, families in despair. It's really a travesty to see what's happening in our cities, and it's largely due to the policies that are being promoted by the Democratic parties in our cities. And unfortunately, our city and urban areas have been brainwashed into believing that accepting these programs is actually helping them, when in fact it's actually hurting them. But I was talking about the entitlement mentality that is so prevalent in our society today, where too many people expect something for nothing, where too many people expect others to do for them what they ought to be doing for themselves, where too many people have grown too comfortable living off the generosity and or sympathy of others. That's the type of mentality that I'm talking about, that entitlement mentality. And that's not the America that I grew up in. And it's not the America that's going to get us out of the problems that we face today. If you look at every time in this nation's history, from the Revolutionary War to the War of 1812 to the Civil War, all on down through the Great Depression, every time this country was in serious, serious trouble, it was ordinary people who stepped up to the plate, like you and I, that saved this country. And we're at a crossroads right now where we need everyday people like yourselves standing up, fighting for the Constitution, fighting to make this country, restore the greatness of this country, which it deserves. We can get back to where we were. We just got to get the right people in office. And these bureaucrats in Washington are just out of touch with everyday people. I was in the government becoming burdensome. They're actually an impediment to our progress. They've grown that bad that they are actually an impediment. And so what we need to do is get the government out of the way and allow those who can create jobs to actually create jobs. Government doesn't create jobs. Government can create an environment, foster an environment to help facilitate job growth, but they don't create jobs. The only thing that creates a job is a demand for a supply or a service. That's it. That's not rocket science. And the federal government doesn't understand that. So we need to get this uncertainty out of the economy, and we need to make sure we put the right people in place. Now, I am made in China. That pisses me off because when I was growing up, things were made here in America, and you don't see that anymore. And it's really a travesty that we've allowed our politicians to enact laws which would actually give tax incentives to companies to send jobs and businesses overseas. We've gone topsy-turvy in this country, and any laws or regulations that promote America first is what I will promote. So we should cede control over our citizens. I did international law in the Army, and one of the things that I promoted, which is our military policy today, is we don't turn over sovereignty of our soldiers to anybody, and I don't think we ought to turn over sovereignty of any rules or regulations that should be enacted here. I don't think we ought to turn that over to any international organization.
Well, how about your...
Well, you know what, I believe that the Second Amendment protects the right of people to carry arms. I do understand that states can pass regulations making it restrictive for permits and things like that, and as well there should be, but it shouldn't be overly restrictive. I would have supported the reciprocal carry law to allow people to carry concealed weapons in states that have their own concealed weapons law or do not ban it.
HR.
At the federal level, dictating those types of regulations, because that's should be reserved for the state to do, not for the federal government. I don't plan or expect to win the cities. That's not going to happen, regardless of my skin color. That's not going to happen. But if I can get 30% to 40% of the cities, which I can reasonably get, I can win the election. Okay? And the way to do that is to take that message of empowerment over entitlement directly to the people. You know, some people you got to bash them over the head with the truth. And some people, you have to connect the dots for them because they just don't see it. It's not that they're stupid, it's just that they're so preoccupied with things that are going on in their own lives, and they're inundated with stimuli and lies from the media. Things like that I said, I will actively go into the cities and bring my message of empowerment over entitlement. The fact of the matter is, Republicans have conceded the cities to the Democrats, and it's preposterous, yeah, and that's why we keep losing. When the demographics of this state have changed, but the Republican Party has not. And until the Republican Party starts reflecting the makeup of this state, they can't expect to win elections. Tom Foley lost that election by several thousand votes. Why? Because he didn't bother campaigning in the cities. There are some people in the cities that will vote for you just because you shake their hand. No other reason. And then there are some people that will vote for you because they like your message. And then there are others who vote for you because you got to give them something. So there's votes to be had in the city. And we ought to be in the cities for three main reasons. Number one, we can get votes. Number two, by not going into the cities. Let me say that again. By not going into the cities, the Republican Party reinforces the negative image that urban people have of it. And three, if there's going to be any election fraud, guess where it's going to take place?
In the city.
In the city.
In Bridgeport. The ATF have been behind the illegal purchase of excessive amounts of firearms in the southwestern states of the United States, and the gun shops that were involved were trying to warn the ATF that, look, something's not right here, and the ATF pushed them to let them go, let the firearms go, which let the guns walk. And what happened was these guns started showing up in crime scenes, they started showing up in Mexico, and They started showing, they showed up at the death of a Border Patrol agent, and they're still popping up months after the operation stopped. Now, there's been a couple investigative committee hearings that did, but when, it's hard for me to ask if you have a refund.
Let me ask you this. What was the purpose of that? Why was ATF doing that? Why was ATF not allowing
Well,
that?
supposedly the justification was to see where the guns track, so we can get the big guys.
And they didn't track them.
And they didn't track them, and you got thousands and thousands of firearms on the streets, both in this country and in Mexico. A lot of people here seem to feel that this was basically a setup of the Justice Department, because now they're claiming they didn't know anything about it. That it was potentially set up for the purpose of having the guns show up down in Mexico so they could use it as justification for stricter gun control laws. In other words, the gun shops,
And holders acting dumb on it.
the gun shops were potentially scapegoated. They were potentially used as scapegoats to deliver the goods so they can say, see, we can't control how many guns go here, there, and everywhere. So it's hard for you if you don't.
I'm not too familiar with that to comment on it.
I would suggest you take a look.
I'll look into that, but something sounds shady there.
As your campaign rolls forward, I would like to stress our willingness, as with any other candidate too, for, as long as they're opposed Second Amendment at this point, to allow ourselves to be a teacher in some of the things.
Sure, I have no problem with this, because you seem to be, you guys are going to be a lot more well-versed on Second Amendment issues than me, because that's the whole purpose of
What we do.
That's what we do.
John.
Thank you.